So hello, I'm Dr. Rice. I'm a medical oncologist and hematologist and medical director for oncology service lines here at WellSpan. I first got interested in my field of medicine through my work in research, actually. I was always strongly interested in cancer biology, and that drew me in both the science, but also the care that we give to patients. That's what really drew me to that, to the patients, to the care, to the community that's created through that, and through the science, where we're always pushing the envelope to create better care in cancer. When I first went into my residency program in internal medicine, which is what you do prior to specializing if you have an interest in oncology, the only real treatment for non-small cell lung cancer was cisplatin, and that added some time, but not a lot of time. And that came about through clinical trials, looking at a drug and looking at how it interacted for patients and looking at standard of care. Through clinical trials, we have evolved. In that span of time, which is well over 20 years, we now have many more treatments, including immunotherapy, which has dramatically extended the lifespans of patients with cancer. Chronic myeloid leukemia was a drug-driven treatment recently. When I mean recently, in the last few years. When I started out, CML was a cancer that basically was terminal within 3 years without a transplant. And even then, only 25% of patients responded to that transplant. Then through clinical trials and research, a drug was found, Gleevec, which dramatically changed the paradigm to the point where some patients in 3 to 7 years after being on this medication can come off and the CML will not return. So it's through clinical trials and research that we've gotten to that point in the last 15 years, going from a cancer that was dramatically terminal to where patients get a pill that they can do very well on with minimal side effects, and over time, some of those patients can come off of that medication. Breast cancer, where we found through research why some breast cancer patients did worse than others because they had HER2 positive disease. That's a receptor that we found that when overexpressed or amplified was more aggressive in nature. From that discovery and the bench, what we call research work, to taking it to looking for a drug that attacked that. One drug that first came out was Herceptin, to seeing that not only did it help patients who had disease that spread to live longer and respond, to that if we gave it to patients that had surgery, that increased the likelihood of the disease not coming back up to 30, 40%. That's fantastic. That's life-changing for a lot of these patients, which, being old enough to remember this, for some it's like, oh yeah, we've always had these treatments. But that was like maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We went from a disease that was unfortunately very aggressive, and while still aggressive, and we still need to do more, has improved. This was all done through basic science research and clinical research that pushes the envelope, that helps us bring the best care to our patients, which is one of the things that brought me to oncology, because that is where we're using science, data, to improve care for our patients, to push the envelope, as I said, to move things forward. WellSpan has a long history of involvement in oncology research. Going back to 1992, WellSpan has had clinical trials in oncology. In that time period, over 3,008 members of our community in WellSpan have been enrolled in clinical trials. Currently, there are over, I'd say about 100, a little over 100 clinical trials currently open at WellSpan in oncology. 50 of those are probably actively enrolling patients, and the other 50 are patients who the enrollment has ended, but we're still following those patients because patients respond to treatment and we follow them over time. So WellSpan has a long history of doing research and has expanded research and enrolled more and more patients. We're members of NRG, voting members, which is a national alliance and a consortium for clinical trials in cancer. While I'm very passionate about clinical trials, and I do think that's a vital part of the toolkit that we use in offering patients treatment, we always, as part of that, offer the best care in the world, what is currently standard and would be given to you whether you were here or at an academic center. We always offer care to patients, with clinical trials being one of the tools that we have to offer patients, but not necessarily something they have to do. We, as many know, have a collaboration with Johns Hopkins that focus on second opinions, on clinical trials that Hopkins may have available that we don't, that we can connect patients to, but also through a novel WellSpan Scholars Hopkins program. That is a research grant available to clinical researchers at Hopkins, but also to WellSpan physicians who might wish to be a principal investigator for grant money for novel research looking at value care and community care through these research grants. Treatment in medicine, it always revolves around making sure people have the best quality of life. No matter what their circumstances or outcomes, we always aim for that. And that's most especially true in cancer. WellSpan has always been very active in research. And the best way, as I mentioned before, there are some trials that are open and they close to enrollment. And we're always adding newer clinical trials as better opportunities open for our community and that we want to bring to our community. The best way to see about that is to go to our website and to contact our cancer centers to know what trials are open specifically at those centers.